So, the new Harry Potter show is actually happening. It's real. I feel like we've been talking about this show for such a long time, but for some reason, it's just never felt real to me. Like the idea that we're gonna get a different Harry, a different Ron, a different Hermione. My brain has been struggling to comprehend that, but it's real, man. We now have seen actual footage from the show, and damn, there's a lot of thoughts going on in my brain. So what I want to do in this video is talk about all the potential that this show has to be great, the potential it has to be trash, and then we're also going to get into some specific things that we need to talk about after getting our first look at this show. So right off the bat, the first thing I have to acknowledge is this show has potential. I feel like that is undeniable at this point. Just the idea of taking these books and adapting them into seasons of television where you can have 8, 9, 10 hours to adapt these books, where before you only had 2 to 3 hours, has so much promise. Specifically, when you do get to those later books, which admittedly I haven't read. I read the first 3 books and then the first couple chapters of the 4th book back when I was a kid, but from what I've heard, those later Harry Potter movies had to cut out a ton of stuff from the books because they simply just couldn't fit it into a movie. So when we get seasons 4, 5, and onwards of this show, there's just going to be so many things that they're going to be able to include and put on screen that we've never gotten. And that's exciting. But here's the thing. In order to get to seasons 4 and 5 and onwards, you first have to get through seasons 1, 2, and 3. And this is one of the major difficulties of the show. In order to get to seasons 4 and 5, where the benefits of the television format will come in handy, you first have to go through seasons 1, 2, and 3, where the benefits of the television format are needed the least. Because the movie already did a pretty good job of covering most of the stuff that happened in those early books, because they weren't as long. That being said, I still think that they could make this work. For starters, I really want the show to take liberties and not be afraid to add stuff in. While the first 3 books may be shorter in length, so some people feel like it doesn't warrant a 8-hour adaptation, I feel like this gives them a lot of opportunities to maybe add storylines in that weren't even in the novels, or just add depth and world building to what's already there. I'm not saying to add filler, but rather just things that could elevate the story. The first chapter of the first Harry Potter book is all just a lead up to Harry being left on the doorstep as a baby. We see Uncle Vernon go to work, and he's hearing all of these murmurs about something that has happened in the wizarding world, and it just builds such an atmosphere. But in the movies, that's just the first 3 minutes. All we see is Dumbledore, who shows up on Harry Street, he turns the lights off, and then boom, he puts him on the doorstep. Good luck, Harry Potter. And that's it. So in this format, the whole lead up to Harry being dropped off at the Dursleys, I could imagine that being the first half of the first episode. And even if I remember correctly, from the 4th book, the entire first chapter of that one is just the backstory of the Riddle House, which ends with Harry waking up from his dream with his scar burning. But in the movie, they just have to skip over the whole Riddle House flashback entirely. So again, the chance to go more in depth here is definitely there. Also, especially in those early seasons when they have more time, I would love to see them adding in new stories that maybe weren't even there in the books. I bring this example up in so many of my videos because it's one of the most perfect seasons of television ever, but The Last of Us Season 1. That is a season of television that does a perfect job of adding in stuff that wasn't there in the original source material. The Bill and Frank episode, not part of the game. They made that stuff up entirely for the show. And in my opinion, it's the best episode in the entire series. And then even the way we're able to spend time with other people's perspectives, like in episode 5, where we see things from Henry and Sam's perspective before they meet Joel and Ellie. I feel like the Harry Potter show could take those same kind of liberties. When Harry reads the card about Albus Dumbledore and how he helped defeat Grindelwald back in the day, give us a flashback episode where you play that out. And throughout the course of the show, give us flashback episodes about a young James and Lily and Snape when they were kids at Hogwarts. Even Ron and Hermione could benefit from this because in the movies, we pretty much only see Ron and Hermione when they're around Harry. Because in film, when you've only got 2 hours to get through a story, you kind of have to keep things tied to your main character's perspective. But with the TV format, you can have episodes where we mainly follow Ron or mainly follow Hermione, and that could even add so much more depth and attachment to their characters. So as you can see, the potential is totally there for them to make this a worthwhile adaptation, but only if they're willing to take liberties and add depth to the story so it feels like we're getting something out of the show that we didn't already get from the movies. Because ultimately, what you have to consider is this show is not coming out in a vacuum, okay? This show is coming out after 8 movies that are iconic and beloved, literally some of the most celebrated films of all time. So you have to understand, most people coming to watch this show have already seen the movies at some point, even the kids. Like, if you're 10 years old, you've probably seen a Harry Potter movie at this point. So I just hope, especially with those early seasons where the books aren't as long, that they really double down on the benefits that come with the TV format and just give us more. Otherwise, if it feels too similar to the movies and like we're not getting a new perspective or new insights, I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm not sure that this show will ever make it to season 4, which would be a huge shame. That being said, there is reason to be optimistic, because the first season is supposed to be about 8 hours long, which means 8 one-hour episodes each, and that would make it almost 4 times as long as the film adaptation. So I do feel like we will be getting a lot more that we never got to see. Now, as for the actual quality of the show, I gotta be honest with you, I'm not that concerned. First of all, this show is being done by HBO Max, which, I mean, in terms of quality, there's nobody more dependable. So I think it's at least safe to say that we are in for a competent, well-made show. And I'm sure that all of the actors and everyone behind the scenes is going to do a good job with this. Already, from what we've seen in the trailers, the production looks pretty damn good. It looks cinematic, it looks huge, that Hans Zimmer score is banging, so I do feel like they're going to make this feel like the blockbuster television that it's supposed to, which is great. But it also means, unfortunately, they're probably going to take like 2 years in between each season. So yeah, this show is not going to finish till 2038, but you can't have it all, guys. Now, to speak on some stuff that is specifically in the first footage of the show, I mean, let's just talk about it. Snape is black now. Now, people have very strong opinions about this, so here's how I feel about it. If a character's race or skin color has nothing to do with the story, it has nothing to do with the character, and it doesn't change the story or the character in any way, then I don't care. Turn them white, turn them yellow, turn them blue, it doesn't matter to me. Like Nick Fury in the MCU, played by Samuel L. Jackson, a black guy. Apparently, and I didn't even know this, but in the comics, Nick Fury is white. Does anybody care? No, because Samuel L. Jackson kills it, and I don't think it ever really changes the character. However, I will say this. As we all know, part of Snape's storyline is that he was getting bullied when he was a kid. Now, if Hogwarts is filled with a bunch of white kids, and you now have one black kid, and he's the one person getting bullied, you know, that could be a little bit problematic, because ultimately that would change the story into something that it's not. It would make it seem like that bullying is racially motivated as opposed to just being, I don't know, regular bullying. So I could see that being a big problem because that would fundamentally change the story. However, I also think the fix for this is pretty simple. Like, as long as there's other kids at Hogwarts that are black, we should be fine. Like, this only becomes weird to me if Snape is the only black kid around. But if there's a ton of other black kids around at Hogwarts, then we're not going to assume that he's being bullied because of his race. So, will this be a problem or not? I think it's one of those situations where we're just gonna have to wait and see how it all plays out. Also, from the trailer, it does seem like a lot of the shots are darker, and I mean literally darker in terms of they are less bright. Like that one scene of the trio sitting in the train, if you compare that to how it looked in the original movies with Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and Rupert Grint, it is visibly brighter. And I do think this is kind of an important detail, because as we all know, the Harry Potter movies get darker as they progress, and the color palette of them follows. Like as Harry's life is getting darker and more screwed up, it's like the vibe of these movies gets darker and more screwed up. So to see that the teaser for the first season of this show already kind of looks like the 4th and 5th movies does have me a little bit concerned, because you want to establish that very warm, magical feeling, especially in these first couple seasons. This is the time where Harry, Ron, and Hermione are younger. There's a greater sense of wonder, and the wizarding world has more of a feeling of awe and magic compared to the darkness that comes later in the story when Voldemort starts to rise back to power. That being said, the final shot of the kid who plays Ron going, pew! Absolutely loved it. I can't wait to see this trio in action.
Really, Harry Potter?
So guys, the new Harry Potter show. Are you excited? Are you worried? However you feel, let me know down in the comments. And if you guys like this video and want to watch another, click somewhere on the screen to see what YouTube thinks you'd enjoy. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.